Working with Xiaofi was a huge opportunity for him, and they knew it, as his pay rapidly climbed for Miech to respectable athletes by Wall Street standards. $2.5 million in 2006. Tenny never forgot to whom he owed his good fortune. I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all you have done for me. He wrote the COP in early 2007. I will be eternally grateful. The hit grad von Sterned smell. Some if some if investors here hid net worth customers of Beer Sterners. One of whom world leaders said that they thought he was getting in on a special club, and Trott thought his grade wasn't all that selective. Eventually, the three biggest investors were so-called funded funds of kick funds, meaning they pooled investors' money and doled it out to hedge funds. Such funds often had a reputation for being hot money, meaning they had no loyalty to any hedge fund. They would yank their money at the first sign of trouble. By the summer of 2007, the Hick Great Fund had become one of the biggest buyers of mortgage risk in the maker. Um, that was when Theophy and Tiny launched a second fund whose name could not have been more perfect for the times. The fund was called the Bear Stearns High Grade Structured Credit Strategies, and then Leverage Limited Partnership, and Assets Leverage for short. Um, Its point of differentiation was the enormous leverage in it planned to use as much as 27 to 1 to produce hit returns. Although hit rate had produced 40 straight hit months of the gains, spread had continued to narrow, and it had become increasingly difficult to earn more than treasury bills. That also explained why in 2006 Xiaofin began focus on the AAA and AA slides of CDOs, much of which was more backed by subprime mortgage. Like like he too was looking for that little bit of extra returns. He bought $7 billion worth of highly rated tranches. In addition to using the repo market, COV developed a second source of funding, one that both was indicative of market growing insanity and served as powerful transmitter of the supreme bears. In a sense, the beer funds set up their own CDOs. They sold asset they owned to the CDOs, which they managed. They retained the equity base of the new CDOs and used the fresh cash to budget more assets. Tenny referred to this as internal leverage. For the beer guys, this was aimed at a saving way to get low costs. Low risk leverage, among other things, lenders could then simply yank cash from the funds the way repo lenders could. But the risk was still hit there in this case in resided at the bank that underwrote the CDO that because instead of selling long date debt, the new CDO sold very short term, low cost commercial paper. This paper in turn was bought by money market funds around the country in order to make the commercial paper palatable for money market funds. the bank that underwrote the CDO of the Citigroup and later Bank of America, would issue what was called a liquidity bond. That meant that if buyers for paper scarce in the event, say, of a disruption in the market. The banks could step in and buy it themselves. COP raised as much as $10 billion this way, according to Business Week, while Citigroup earned to $22.3 million in fees for underwriting the CDOs and was paying another $40 million a year for providing the liquidity pot. At the time, this appeared to be free money, and yet, as early as the summer of 2006, the axe Raiden Taney was worried. The announced leverage fund had been successfully launched and Tennis had been named a senior manager director. It should have been a happy time for him, but he would later note in his diary, as I said in John's office, John Jansinger, the chief investment officer at Beast Standard Asset Management, I I had a web fear set over me that the funds couldn't be found the way that I was hoping, and that it was going to subject investors to blowing risks. He continued this. I'll hit me like a ton of bricks, and the first result almost immediately was for me to lose my ability to sleep. Classic anxiety. Let me try and describe my mental state. I was incredibly stressed. Why was I stressed? I became very worried very quickly. I was worried that this would end badly. Fear. That was the subject line of an email that the office sent to the firm's chief economist, undergrad Mo Mobasheri, on March 2007. It was 2 weeks after his vodka toast with his to college. I am fairly of these markets, he wrote. Matt said it either a meltdown or the greatest buying opportunity ever. I am leaning more towards the former. It might not be melted down for the general economy, but in our world it will be. Wall Street will be hammered with lawsuits, dollars with lost million, and the CDO business will not be the same for years.